This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Good morning, Mustang fans, and welcome to the After Stang Show. I am Billy Embody. It is Sunday morning, and that is about the time in Raleigh that SMU wrapped up its overtime 28-27 win over Duke to stay unbeaten in ACC play and move to 7-1 on the year. We are presented by our friends at Mosquito Shield. We have a lot to get to today, but a reminder to reach out to Mosquito Shield today. SMU owned, get in there for their mosquito control spraying just in time for the end of the season. They'll give you the best pricing they've got when you mention On the Pony Express or the code PONYUP. Go to moshield.com and give them a call. Reach out to them online. They actually don't have to come out to your property to assess what they need to do, how much they need to spray, all of those things. They just figure it out for you by looking above on good old Google Maps and assessing how big your property is and things like that. So they will do that on their own. Mosquito Shield, I've gotten a couple applications now, and I can tell you sitting outside is so enjoyable for me now because it is just non-existent mosquitoes. I mean, you still have, your normal bugs here and there, but the mosquitoes have really died down, and it's because of the really high quality spray application that they have. They have the all natural version. They also have the one that's just a smidge below all natural that can really help control those really difficult mosquito problems. So reach out to Mosquito Shield today. Moshield.com is where you find more information on that. Andrew Galloway and his wife will handle all your needs in DFW. Mention On the Pony Express for their best pricing. So lots to unpack. Let's start with some housekeeping. SMU does win 28-27. They extend the longest active road winning streak in the country, tied with Texas. Texas did beat Vanderbilt on Saturday as well. SMU is now 7-1 overall. They are going to have the ACC network on campus, 7 p.m. Central on Saturday for the homecoming game against Pitt, a far cry from the 11 a.m.s. that SMU fans have been used to, it seems like lately, with homecoming games. And then you've got ACC Huddle that will join them. No College Game Day. It was just announced before I went on the air here that College Game Day is going to Penn State. What I can tell you about that, and I'm not going to cry a river or anything like that, but College Game Day books hotels in multiple cities. So we said that there was a good chance that SMU was going to get it. They ended up going with Penn State, where they've been a million times, which is their decision. It is probably the place that is going to get more ratings. It is a Fox game, so that's a decision. But at the end of the day, that's what, for the most part, ESPN is going to do. They're going to go with more name brand type of places. And it was just one of those perfect times where they really maybe could have, should have, would have done it. So if SMU keeps winning, maybe they come back or they come for Boston College, but they are going to Penn State. And so that is all settled. SMU fans, you can plan to be out there for the huddle, 10 a.m. On Saturday. Eric McLean, Taylor Tannenbaum, EJ Manuel, the entire crew, Eddie Royal, will be out there, and they'll be out there broadcasting on Friday. They'll be in the same spot they were on campus, right behind Bose Hall on Friday for ACCPM. So it is going to be a huge weekend for homecoming. SMU is battling a top 25 team for basically ACC championship game positioning. You can't ask for much more. If you're SMU, you are just so thankful you escaped with a win at Duke. And obviously, it is going to be a game that is very much talked about in terms of a lot of negatives for SMU's offense in terms of turnovers, ball security. Kevin Jennings had his worst game as the starting quarterback at SMU. But I'll say this. watching the game live, and I rewatched. I've only rewatched the last 7 minutes or so of the game. I haven't had a chance to do a rewatch of the entire game. But if you'd have told me SMU would have put up 469 yards of offense against a Duke defense that was one of the best in the country, they rushed for 211 yards. They had 23 first downs. They were 50% on third downs. Okay. They ran 74 plays. They averaged 6.3 yards per play, 6.3 yards per play. And of course, that includes the 24-yard touchdown by Brashard Smith in overtime. But nevertheless, 6.3 yards per play. Kevin Jennings was not sacked, and they held Duke's defense to 2 tackles for loss. I would have told you that SMU would have won by double digits and covered the spread. But like we talked about leading up into this game, a couple things. Duke's offense didn't have the firepower to score with SMU's. I think we proved that to be true in a sense. 21 points in regulation and 21 points in regulation from Duke's offense. SMU's offense had ample opportunities. 2 times they were inside the 10. They would have, could have, should have punched it in. They did not. They were at the 1. They got stuffed 4 straight times. And Duke went right down the field, I believe, and was able to score and make it 21-13 at that point. It was a late night last night, so I'm trying to get my facts in order. No, they didn't go right. Yeah, they did. They did go right down the field, I think. Or they went. They got out to midfield. They drove a little bit. But if like SMU squandered so many opportunities to do exactly kind of what Vegas thought they could do, and it was very similar to the BYU game in that sense, except SMU was able to come out with a win. Against BYU, SMU squandered opportunities inside the red zone, inside the 10. They turned the ball over, and because of that, they lost. This game, they found a way to win. And quite honestly, you turn the ball over 6 times, you should lose most of the times. SMU, I believe, is the second team to lose the turnover margin by 6 and win, and which is just an incredible stat, and speaks to the resiliency of this team and how they really don't let things bother them, believe it or not. And they were able to wipe the slate clean in overtime and get a 24-yard touchdown run by Brashard Smith. Duke goes out, throws a touchdown pass right off the bat, and then SMU gets a stop on 1 play. And that is all that matters. I mean, in a sense, there's a lot of things to clean up. And let's kind of go bit by bit here. The turnovers. So Kevin had, like I said, by far his worst night as the starting quarterback of SMU. He threw 3 interceptions. He put the ball on the ground a bunch. He lost, I believe, only 1 fumble. No, he lost 2. He lost 2 fumbles. I mean, just as miserable of a night for him as you could possibly imagine in the turnover department. And he's got to find a way to put this behind him and not let it impact him and not let it affect who he is, because this is a Duke defense that does this. Like, this is, they don't necessarily, force 6 turnovers. They don't necessarily own the turnover margin like this in every game, because Duke's offense has been, interesting as well. But they hustle, they keep playing hard, and that's why they're able to punch the ball out. That's why they're able to make those type of game-changing plays. Like, you look at the Matthew Hibner reception at the end of the first half, who Matthew Hibner ended up being SMU's second leading receiver, 4 receptions, 39 yards. He had a long of 16, 30 of his 39 yards came yards after the catch. So a really nice night for him in his debut as a starting tight end for SMU with RJ Maryland out. But he was basically snaking his way in for extra yardage for SMU to get a field goal opportunity at the end of the first half. Duke's defense kept playing hard, and that's why they were able to force that fumble. It wasn't, oh, this guy's going down, let's just let him go down and we'll get up and we'll live to fight another day. No, They kept playing their tail off and they punched the ball loose. That's what Duke does. So we'll see if this becomes a little bit of a trend. I know everybody, not everybody, but some people want to just immediately go jump down Kevin's throat or wave the flag that I told you so or whatever about Kevin when it comes to ball security. But the reality is he's been pretty darn good at taking care of the football ever since I think that TCU game when he had the fumble early. And we'll see how he responds. I mean, that's the thing is that, you know, there's after last week at Stanford where they got up big, they cruised, they played with their food, all those things. It could have been a much larger margin of victory. SMU had a game where they were very close to being dominant on offense and having the results to back that up. Like I picked the game 35-11, a weird score. Don't get me wrong on the Duke side, but actually when Duke's kicker missed the extra point, I was like, okay, I wasn't like too far off there. It would have been a weird score. But for SMU, the turnovers just sunk their ship. You know, they had multiple really solid drives and to come away with the points that they did is disappointing, and they've got to figure out, you know, how to fix that. I think some of the credit does go to Duke. I think they played really hard. I think they were able to you know, find ways to disrupt an SMU offensive line at times that was missing Justin Osborne in the second half. They just were able to get some pressure on Kevin and force him to extend plays. And Kevin made some bad decisions. And then you had, you know, all the fumbles from everybody, it seemed like, on offense. But SMU's offense just kind of stuck with it. And I think that's so important as a team that SMU did. And you have to win a game like this every now and again to have a great season. And that's what SMU did. When you turn the ball over 6 times, you don't expect to lose, or you don't expect to win. And most of the time you deserve to lose. But SMU won that game. They didn't get handed it. They didn't luck into it. They made their own luck by going out at the end of a game and blocking a field goal. Jafari Harvey jumping over an offensive lineman. I'll try to pull it up here for you guys. Jumping over an offensive lineman, one of the great athletic plays that I've seen covering this team. And he was able to make a huge play. And then you get a complete reset on life. And everybody who watches this podcast, I would imagine, is able to watch ACC Huddle and watch the crew break things down. And, you know, I saw Eric McLean on the field at the end of regulation, and I said to him, they have fresh life. Nothing matters now. And he goes, what a crazy game. And it's true. You have to be able to flush things and lock in. And it wasn't perfect in overtime by any means for SMU's defense. They give up a touchdown on Duke's one play, but they locked in for one play. And we say this all the time. There are a few plays a game that define whether you win or lose. And for SMU in the past, against an Oklahoma, and in some cases against TCU last year, for example, or TC last year, a couple plays. But SMU keeps playing so hard, and they have that standard that is set to play so hard that when push came to shove Saturday night in Durham, when things weren't going well at all, they got the plays they needed and they won. And I think that's what you have to hang on to with this team, is that they are never out of the fight. They're never at a point in their game where they're feeling like they're going to lose. And Brashard Smith said it after the game. He said something to the effect of, never bet against SMU. SMU's always going to come out on top. And that type of confidence is contagious. And when Duke was lining up for the game-winning field goal, yeah, a lot of people on the sidelines, a lot of people on the board, including myself. I mean, 99.9% of the time, a kicker is the field goal unit is able to execute and win on a walk-off field goal. But SMU had a plan. Rhett Lashley said it on the ACC network after the game, and he said it again with us in the postgame. The reason why he didn't call timeout leading up to that field goal attempt is they wanted to present a block field goal look. And then they called timeout and they went with their plan, which was basically that Jafari Harvey was going to obviously jump over the offensive lineman, but they have a play where the guy's right there. I think Mike Lockhart, could be wrong, but basically kind of like pushes the offensive lineman down so that it gives Jafari room to jump, because if Jafari touches them, it is a penalty. That's kind of the rule from what I saw, heard, understood. I know it's a rule over the long snapper, but anyway, SMU was able to execute that plan because of the management there at the end. And so sometimes you do make your own luck, you make your own plays. And sometimes, Jafari could have jumped and maybe he doesn't get up all the way and he trips and Duke wins the game. But he was able to execute their plan and block the field goal, come up with a huge game-changing play, and SMU is able to go out in overtime. And there are 4 total plays in overtime. They out-executed Duke in a sense. They got the plays when it mattered, and they come away with a 28-27 win. So that is the kind of gist of how maybe you should be feeling this morning, is that you are 7-1. You did win. No one should care that it was as ugly as it was. No one should care that they didn't cover. I mean, of course, if you have money on the game, it sucks. But if you're a Mustang fan, you have to have a game like that. And that's what makes it obviously tough looking back on the BYU game, is that they couldn't get that for that game. But when an ACC championship berth is still in contention, still on the line, to get that win, it's huge, and it means everything, because now it sets up SMU Pitt, pair of top 25 teams, unbeaten in ACC play. Pitt's obviously undefeated after their win Thursday night over Syracuse, and we'll talk about that game later this week. It's a game that, of course, you're going to be, if you're an SMU fan, you're going to be shaking in your boots, because Pitt's coming off a game where they grabbed 3 pick sixes off of Kyle McCord and forced a bunch of turnovers and did all of those things. And I'm sure that's going to be the talking point all week, is Kevin Jennings can't take care of the ball. Pitt's going to feast. Well, Vegas comes out with the opening line, SMU -6.5. So that was also the first conference game that SMU didn't cover as well. So that's something to note. But I'll jump into some questions here. I do want to talk about the defense and special teams. Special teams, will start there. You get the game-changing field goal block. You get Colin Rogers to hit on all of his extra points. Very, very important, obviously. And then you have no turnovers in the kick return game. Duke's kicker, I think SMU had maybe one. They had one. They had 2 kickoff returns on the night, 19 and 17 yards. Roger Daniels caught his punts. They had 1 personal foul. I didn't see it. It was on Abdul Muhammad, but I mean, I saw the replay. They showed it. I don't know what he did after the play. It was the play that Brandon Maizona was hurt on, but so special teams played clean. Really, really good game from special teams. I still think this special teams unit is underrated overall by fan base. If you watch college football, I tell you, if you watch college football for an entire day, go tell me that it's not 90% of college football teams that have a special teams problem. If you watch it on one day in a vacuum, but they were able to have a really good performance by special teams, and then the defense is unbelievable. And they gave up a lot of yards through the air. Malik Murphy threw for 295 yards. He completed 56% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He played almost winning football. But I'll say this: SMU made them earn just about every yard. They gave up the big, long touchdown pass early. They gave up the first play of overtime where they just went with a go ball and they beat Jalen Davis Robinson there. But you're watching the game on defense and you're thinking, well, where's the pressure? I think Duke did a good job of getting the ball out quickly. When they didn't, SMU made them pay. It was errant throws, incomplete passes. SMU was able to grab a sack. And I think they just affected Malik Murphy, because when things don't go perfect, it looks ugly. I mean, he one-hopped one at the end of the first half, I think. I mean, when he was off, it was just not good. And for SMU's defense to make them kind of earn every single yard, I thought was important, especially with how many possessions they had where they were put in bad situations. I mean, you look at that fourth quarter for Duke, they did score touchdown, and they were able to score that touchdown with let's see. Maybe I was looking at that wrong. Yeah, it says Duke scored a touchdown. Early, or 9:02 to go in the fourth quarter. But with 9:02 to go in the fourth quarter, you would have thought it was really going to be a bad situation for SMU's defense. They had just given up that touchdown, and they, were on the field a lot. That's why they given up 2 straight Duke touchdowns. I was looking at the wrong chart. Sorry, guys. 2 straight Duke touchdowns, both long drives. The defense looked gassed, especially on the end of the second one. But then they bowed up, and SMU was able to force a field goal attempt. That was missed. They forced a punt, which I thought was super important, with 2:55 to go, where Duke got the ball at the SMU 39. And then SMU fumbles, of course, and they forced a field goal attempt. The last 3 Duke drives, they ran 12 plays, and they got 15 yards of regulation. When SMU needs a big performance from its defense, they get it. And I honestly got to say, on the board, it's kind of tiring saying like, oh, it's curtains, it's this, it's that. SMU's offense wasn't making enough plays and holding on to the ball where SMU was in position to win the game. But the defense finds ways because they have depth. They have good coaching. They make adjustments. Tonight, or I should say Saturday night, SMU's offense turned the ball over. They were operating at a very good level, 6.3 yards per play. Defensively, you can almost always count on SMU's defense to make plays when you need them to. And so, I mean, they pitched basically after Duke's first drive, second drive of the game, where they scored a touchdown. SMU played a pretty perfect first half defensively. This defense is going to make you earn every yard. So the curl routes that Malik Murphy was hitting, all of those things where it was definitely soft coverage, that was clearly by design. But in the game thread, enough with doubting this defense. Enough. 21 points in regulation should, 99% of the time for SMU, be enough to get a win. And obviously it was last night, as they won in overtime, but enough with the doubting of the defense. I mean, the game thread was rightfully all over SMU's turnovers and lack of ball security. And it's something that absolutely has to be corrected. It should be like the BYU game was a wake-up call for SMU in terms of, not putting together a complete game and losing. This game should have been the wake-up call for SMU's offense. And in particular, Kevin Jennings, who's been outstanding as a starter overall, the wake-up call necessary to hold on to the ball. This was a good Duke defense. Pitt is similar in terms of being opportunistic. They're going to have to get it all corrected. But, I mean, the sooner everyone on the message board realizes this isn't the old SMU, the better. And maybe you'll have a different perspective for some of you. Some of you are right in there and have, I think, the right perspective. We talked about it after the Stanford game, but there's so much gloom and doom. And this is it. It's over. It's all this. SMU keeps playing. And there would have been no shame in losing to a 6-1 Duke team. But we've said it for the last 2 years. The only way SMU can lose is if they beat themselves. And it's true. That's where this team is from a talent, from a coaching, from an execution level. When they don't beat themselves, they can win every game on the schedule. And they were able to survive and advance with this game against Duke. So there's a lot more we'll talk about with Hayden Howerton on the podcast later this week. Lots to break down, lots of things, lots of injuries. SMU had a bunch of guys go down during the game. Jake Bailey went down. He did not return. Linebacker Brandon Maizona did not return. Justin Osborne did not return. Kevin Jennings got drilled on that interception and did return, which was huge. Elijah Roberts got banged up at the end of the fourth quarter and did return for the overtime. This is a game that was just an absolute war. Two coaching staffs that wanted it. And despite the turnovers, if SMU didn't have the turnovers, which is an if, like Duke earned them, SMU gave the ball away a bunch, all those things, but SMU would have handled business pretty easily. And so for an SMU team that has generally done a good job of taking care of the football, and I know people want to look at Stanford. Well, 2 of the turnovers were on special teams, so or Roger Daniels in particular. So with this offense, they've done a really good job taking care of the football. They've played complementary football with the defense forcing turnovers. The last 2 games, SMU's lost the turnover margin, so you want to get back on the right side of that. But you got to believe, 6 turnovers and losing the turnover margin 6-0 is probably a little bit of an anomaly for SMU. We'll see. They'll have to figure it out for Duke or for Pitt, because Pitt's going to be ready to go. But the turnover piece is why this game was where it's at. SMU was moving the ball just about on every drive. let me pull it up real quick here, but SMU was just able to almost do what they wanted. They had 1 3-and-out in the first half, and SMU did not have a 3-and-out against Duke that was not a turnover, if that makes sense. So generally the offense was moving. Generally they were able to at least pick up a first down. They were able to milk some clock. But when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turnovers on the night, or 6 turnovers, and including a turnover on downs on 13 drives, it's insane. So I'll chalk that one up to SMU is not going to do that again, but they've absolutely got to get it right and get it on track. So, all right, let's jump into some questions and get out of here. It was an emotional night on the board for our On the Pony Express subscribers, but let's lead with one from Abe Zatnar. Best defense ever. I said this after the Nevada game, don't panic. This defense is going to be fine. And they've been outstanding. And it's such a group that has depth. They have talent. Jonathan Jefferson could not play. He got hurt in the Stanford game. Tank Booker, I thought, had his best game as a Mustang. Duke was not really able to get the ground game going too much. They rushed for 3.4 yards per carry. Star Thomas rushed 17 times for 65 yards. It was a very just like they made him earn every yard. They held Duke to under 100 yards rushing. I just felt like I felt like it all kind of started with Tank Booker in the middle. He just really controlled the middle of that defense so well. And without Jonathan Jefferson, he had to play a little bit more. So, so much depth, so much talent, so much effort. This is the best defense that I've seen by far since covering SMU, and that includes last year's group, obviously. So jump on board the defensive train. Like I said, this is a different SMU team. It's just totally different. The way it's built, the way they're built to win is very, very different than their defensive program. That's where they're at. And they can score some points now, but they're a defensive program in the end. JBN 310 with Jake Bailey injured and obviously not knowing the extent. Have to imagine Roger Daniels moved back to receiver. What happens with the running back room? Two guys and then McFall as the guy who could get some run. Any chance for Luster at running back? Let me just first of all stop with the Luster at running back. He's not playing running back. He's a quarterback. It's been brought up a couple of times, in terms of like moving guys. He's a quarterback. He is a quarterback, and they actually like him a good bit. But Roger Daniels had not played a snap at receiver in over a month per Rhett Lashley, and they moved him back to the slot when Jake Bailey went down late in the first half on SMU's touchdown drive to go up 14-7. And Roger Daniels proceeds to have two massive explosive plays. He gets caught at the one. SMU turns it over on downs, but then he leaves no doubt with an 81-yard touchdown reception. Yes, he will be back at slot if Jake can't go. And then you will have LJ Johnson and Brashard Smith. And then they'll move Roderick to running back here and there when they need to, when they go two tight ends with Matthew Hibner and Stone Eby. But I think they're trying to redshirt McFall, clearly. But he does travel. And I just don't know if they're going to burn the red shirt, which for running back, I just don't understand, but that's another story. And Brashard Smith and LJ Johnson, they're taking care of the ball like they are. And so you want to be like, you want to ride those guys in a key ACC games. You don't necessarily want to leave it to chance with a freshman. Fountain Connoisseur, is playing at home again going to reinvigorate this team? How challenging has the road game environment been this month? This is a good question. SMU will return home for the first time in a month, over a month in terms of days, when they do take on Pitt, 7 p.m. Central on ACC Network this week for homecoming. I think it's going to reinvigorate them. I think they really enjoy playing at home. This is not necessarily a team in Rhett Lashley's tenure that is, they continue to have the longest active road win streak in FBS right now with tied with Texas, but SMU rolls at home. I mean, they really do. I think they have one loss at home under Rhett Lashley. I think it was 2022 TCU or 23. Yeah, one of the two. 2022 TCU. So they really play well at home. So I think they're going to be ready to go. They don't have to get on a plane and do this, do that. And I don't know if it's been challenging, the travel, because there's been a bye week there. They were ready to go for Louisville. That is still one of the best teams, along with BYU, that SMU's played all year. They are the most complete team SMU's played this year, and they got the win. Stanford was tough from how quiet it was. Duke was tough just because they made it tough on themselves. Duke's defense swarmed. They played really hard, and they were able to force turnovers because of it. But it wasn't necessarily a tough game environment, if that makes sense. It was windy. It was a little chilly. But I think they're going to be reinvigorated when they get home. Somebody asked about game day, which we talked about. Spaceballs, they're good. I hope we have a legit crowd. It's homecoming. SMU's playing a top 25 team at Pitt. It's going to be a legit crowd. It was almost full for BYU and a really good crowd for Houston Christian. I mean, it's going to be a legit crowd. Beacon's Pony, is Brashard's spin move a way to shield when he's where he is aching and hurting? I think so, just because he uses it so much. So he's trying to manage it. He's a warrior, though. He's clearly playing through something. What would you expect the coaching staff and Kevin to act to help in ball security? I mean, he's not going to get hit in practice, so there's not much you can do outside of emphasize it. And Rhett said there it's not a burn the film game; it's a watch it and get better game for him. But yeah, I mean, you just got to emphasize it. And ever since that TCU game where he turned it over, he's been pretty good. Even the interception with Hibner against Stanford, Rhett basically said it was kind of miscommunication on where he's going, where Kevin thought he was going. So, yeah, they just got to emphasize it. Hibner seemed to be targeted less in the second half. Was this due to a coverage change? I don't know. I don't know if they actively took him away. But when you look at the drives in the second half for SMU, they didn't do anything because really of like turnovers. Their opening drive of the third quarter, they go down the field and they get stuffed, and it's turnover on downs. And then Roger Daniels goes 81 yards for the touchdown to score. They ran four plays and then punted, and then they had 3 plays, 5 plays, and then overtime. So I mean, it's kind of like they built up a lot of plays in the first half, and Hibner got his in the second half, but in the first half, but in the second half, they just didn't have many plays in a way outside of that opening drive. So I don't know if it was due to a coverage change. Biggest takeaway from the game offensively, if SMU doesn't beat itself, it's a very good offense. And they've got to take care of the football. I mean, that's the biggest thing offensively. I think Matthew Hibner was really good, and just like you said in the second half, it just didn't work out. But like we said this week, SMU is going to be just fine with Matthew Hibner in there on offense. Defensively, I don't think I learned anything. I just think they play their ass off. They fly to the ball, and I just think they hung in there so well, and the depth and the talent of that defense showed tonight, and they will make you or last night, and they will make you earn every yard. How does the Pitt defensive line compare to Duke's? Duke's is a very fast defensive line. I haven't really watched Pitt that in depth. I did watch the Syracuse game, but yeah, I don't know yet. Our heart palpitations normal at 39. Yes, with college football. SMU Law, with all these injuries on offense, do you see anyone having to burn a red shirt to make the difference? I don't think so right now. 214 Stang, who starts next week. This is such a crap post-game comment. I locked a thread on the board talking about, Kevin should look at a new starting quarterback or whatever. It's just short-sighted, just an embarrassing comment for a fan to make after what Kevin's done as an overall body of work. And it's the same reason why I was as an overall body of work saying that Kevin should start, because he did more with the offense as an overall body of work. So Kevin's going to start, and it's just crap post-game comment. Beacon's Pony, any thoughts on how to get Hudson the ball more? He seemed to have a ton of effort when he had the ball in his hands. Completely agree. When will KJ learn to slide? For me, I'll tackle the second part. I don't even think KJ I don't even think KJ was really in slide position on a lot of his fumbles. But yeah, he needs to learn how to take less hits. But how to get Hudson the ball more? This offense is just one right now where they just spread the ball around, and it's different guys, different games. I think Jordan Hudson, and go watch. There are a lot of turnovers last night, so bear with me. I think it's Kevin's second interception or the fumble. I think it was his interception. I could be wrong, but he made a hustle play on one of the turnovers, and it basically saved the game, because either the guy runs it back for a touchdown, I think, and Duke never has to kick the game-winning field goal attempt, or they have really, really good field position and they kick a different game-winning field goal opportunity. So you can tell these receivers are playing at a really high level, especially blocking. And I don't necessarily even know how you get them the ball more. I just think it hasn't worked out for him. And he got a couple touches. I think he got the first play of the game on offense was a 6-yard hitch to him. So it's just kind of how it's gone. But I agree with you. He played with a ton of effort Saturday night. Mustang 41, what was Kevin seeing on his picks? 2 looked identical with the DB undercutting the route. I think it was really good coaching on Manny Diaz's part. They basically doubled the slot receiver. And most of the time this season, SMU's had that, and it's been a staple of Kevin's game. So I think this is a good game for exposing Kevin to adversity, not only from the turnovers, but coverages that he's going to see. And so he has an opportunity now to learn from this in terms of what he's seeing, because it's not like playing a video game by any means, but when you're producing as well as Kevin is, and you are putting up a video game like performance, you go back to four verts, you go back to, the all goes and things like that, where the guy little bends it in the slot and it's easy. Duke took that away. And I think the other pick where he got hurt was just a dumb decision. You got to throw that ball away. He was trying to make a play. It's 3rd and long, which I said it on the board. Rhett should have opened with at least one run, but opened instead with 2 straight pass plays. And this goes to Kurt's question about, did Duke do anything schematically that gave Kevin the fits, or was it just an off night? I think it's both. Duke took away some of the staples of what Kevin did. And I think they had a safety kind of spying him at times when he'd take off. He was kind of hiding in there, and there were a couple runs that you would think, okay, Jay's going to pick this up. And he did pick up a couple first downs, but they were just really well coached. And that is a Manny Diaz defense. So he's got to correct it. SMU has to build some different things off of it. But just a really good chess match and a good defense, and a better defense than I expected based on them having not played anyone, but 469 yards of offense with all those turnovers. I mean, you cut out half those turnovers and SMU might put up 640 points. So you gotta find ways to take care of the football. And this is a game that Kevin's going to learn a lot from. Frequency. The questions this week are obvious. How do we deal with the injuries? Ben Sparks is in for Justin Osborne. They do trust him. They also had Jake Bailey. We talked about that. Roderick. Brandon Miazono is a key special teamer. I think everybody else will play and be fine. How do we handle the turnovers? Kind of same thing. You just got to, but basically all of them were Kevin. I know there were a couple other ball security issues, but you just got to reemphasize them. The team is special, frustrating, and damn it, our ponies. Great way to put it. Pruno 08, the last 6 quarters have been pretty below average. Any reasoning as to why? Travel, posing team schemes, us not playing well, our coaching luck. Yeah, we talked about Stanford. They got up so big, and they just were in such control of the game. They just completely let their foot off the gas. That's just what it was. But last 6 quarters for SMU's defense is pretty darn good. That's the thing. When people talk about this team, they say, oh, it's this, or they're below average. It's a lot of it has been the offense, either hitting a lull at Stanford or last night, 6 turnovers. But everything else is kind of cooking. You know what I mean? Like I just don't think below average is the way to describe the last 6 quarters. I think there's always a better performance out there for SMU, and that's what everybody can see from this team because they are so talented. I think Duke did a lot of things last night to force SMU into some poor situations in terms of turning the ball over. Pony Fan 81, aside from not turning the ball over 6 times, what do we need to do better versus Pitt and in the remaining games? Not turn the ball over. SMU's defense played great. Special teams was fine. They didn't even have to kick the field goal last night. You don't turn the ball over, SMU's probably knocking on the door of 600 yards of offense. There's got to be perspective with everything. This is not an offense that's hot garbage. It's an offense that turned the ball over 6 times and almost screwed themselves out of a lot of, a win, quite honestly. So I don't mean to simplify, but it's true. If SMU doesn't turn the ball, if SMU only turns the ball over 3 times, this game is a cover for SMU, and they win by double digits. Alan Stang, we seem thin at every offensive skill position, wide receiver, running back, tight end. I know Junior and Smith are studs, but why not have McFall, Tripp, Randy Reese, and others? You can't just stick guys in there. And your question is there a significant drop off? There would be right now with just where those guys are at. And it's better to have Roger Daniels, Rashard Smith at 85% or whatever they're at versus, a fresh true freshman Randy Reese or a fresh true freshman Derek McFall or Trip Reardon, who just hasn't done it in a game yet. Whiskey Pony, does Red ever stop being stubborn? I don't know where he was stubborn in this game. I mean, SMU ran the ball 50 times. They doubled up their passing attempts with 24. So if SMU would have passed the ball when they were down at the 1 yard line, people would have been saying he was too cute. Other than that, they turned the ball over 6 times and they burned quite a few unnecessary timeouts. But I don't know. I mean, this game came down to SMU turning the ball over a ton of times. Peach Mustang, view on TV deals look like most accounts are off on broadcast ESPN. Was the deal better with ABC? I have no idea. Talk about TV deals, and was it better with ESPN when the SEC had CBS and the leagues were smaller? I don't know how to answer this question. We can try it again another time. I liked CBS when it was on the SEC, but that was more when Vern was doing it. Show Pony, how did the wide receiver play look from the press box? Were they not getting separation? Was KJ not making plays? I would say that KJ was not making plays. And you look at the drives, and we talked about the second half. You have an offense that went touchdown, went all the way down the field, and then turned it over at the 1 yard line, and then touchdown, and then punt, but then had interception, fumble, and that was their last 3 drives of regulation. And so it's hard to say that, I mean, you can't not put it at the feet of KJ. I mean, he made some really dumb plays, both ball security and interception. So I thought the wide receivers played a really good game. They made the plays when they were called upon. Danny SMU, any updates on the guys that were injured, especially Osborne? Rhett said stinger for Osborne. So he was walking around. He looked fine after the game. So he'll probably be able to play next week is my early guess. No info though. Chad's tempo copter. Was this the funniest game ever, somehow winning with 9 fumbles and interceptions, 6 total giveaways? I did ask Rhett in the post-game press conference. If you haven't watched it, go watch it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. But I did ask him, I was like, after it settled in, did you have to laugh? And he was like, no, I haven't. But you got emotional. It was almost comical. I mean, I don't understand from a player perspective, because look, guys, people could talk about coaching. Players got to make plays too. And there were a lot of areas offensively that had, I would say, a lot to be desired. I thought they did, I don't know how much I'd change. I would have done a little bit different things at the goal line, but I didn't mind them being at least overly simple. But it was almost comical how many times they turned the ball over. So yeah, I think it was kind of funny. And the ending of the game was just absolute chaos, hilarious. The whole thing with the fumble, block field goal, all those things. Danny SMU, how important is it that SMU gave up 0 sacks tonight? Granted, there should have been a few, but with all the injuries, giving up 0 sacks seems very important. 100%. I mean, it allowed them to make enough plays to win the game. But I think that's in part why Kevin was able to kind of stick with it, at least. Like, some people want to say he doesn't have composure. He made a ton of errors, and he overly tried to compensate for his bad turnovers. And I think that's where it came from at especially late in the second half. But he's very, very calm, collected, like during managing the game. Like I think he managed it. He did not manage ball security well at all. But there's never a moment with Kevin back there that you're like, man, this guy is like freaking out. And I think in a game like this, it gave SMU's offense the confidence when it did go to overtime. It was a fresh slate. that they can go out and just execute, and they blocked up a really good scheme for Rashard Smith. He scored. Your quarterback sets the tone of your team. And because Kevin doesn't panic, because Kevin has the eye on the ball in terms of the overall game plan so well, he did not have his eye on the ball in terms of ball security today or last night, but he has his eye on the ball so well with the game plan that it rubs off on his teammates. And I think that's such a big part of this team. And so say whatever you want in terms of his turnovers. He can't have those. They're unacceptable. And if he keeps those up, I mean, Rhett, we're not starting this, but he will be held accountable. I don't think he's going to turn the ball over 6 times every game, but his calmness is such a big factor with this team overall. And people just think that because you turn the ball over, you don't have composure all of a sudden. I mean, it just couldn't be farther from the truth when you play that position. Bruna Cox 22. Any idea if Adam Moore will be available next week? He was dressed. He was on the sideline, starting to get real thin at receiving options. They're clearly trying to redshirt him, but I mean, I would rather Matthew Hibner be out there. I'd rather Snow Eby be out there blocking. So that's just kind of where it's at. SMU alum 11. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but after the 4th or 5th turnover, why didn't Lashley try throwing Stone in to see what happens? Because Kevin's the better option for this offense. Like, look at what they're able to do when he doesn't turn the ball over. It's not that Kevin was disjointed and one-hopping things and making horrible like read decisions and doing all those things. He just didn't take care of the ball like he should have. And I know I'm making it sound simple, but Kevin is the best offense option for this offense, and that's it. Period. End of story. Was the first fumble KJ or Rashard Smith's fault? They were both on this, weren't on the same page with the handoff. I mean, I always kind of lean the side of the quarterback on that in terms of you gotta know you have to be the one that's right. So missed exchange. I mentioned to somebody that, I mean, in terms of SMU's fumbles, and that was early in the game, mind you, but a lot of SMU's fumbles from the quarterback position have kind of been on that exchange situation. Preston did it at Temple, I think. Kevin did it against Boston College on the opening drive. But yeah, I always lean on the side of that's the quarterback's issue. Lastly, when we play Pitt, and like Rhett said on the huddle, are we now exposed for seeming one-dimensional? SMU threw for 258 yards and rushed for 211. So no, SMU's not one-dimensional. Duke was going after KJ gambling. He was going to make a bad throw and it paid off. What can the coaches do to help correct this before Pitt? I mean, I don't know if they were going after him. I think Kevin just made some bad decisions. But they weren't one-dimensional. So they ran the ball 50 times for over 200 yards. Let's see. That is it for our questions. So we are done with this podcast. This went way too long. So hope you guys enjoy this one on your Sunday. I'm going to go enjoy it with my family, and looking forward to seeing the ACC huddle crew and getting around them. And hopefully that means some more barbecue for our boy Eric McLean and the rest of the ACC huddle crew. We have a blast. It's homecoming weekend. It's my 10-year reunion. So excited to kick this one off with a 7-1 SMU football team, which is crazy. They're in the top 25. They're probably moving up, maybe the top 20. And they welcome Pitt, 7 p.m. Central on ACC Network. So this has been a very long after Stangs show, but go check out moshield.com for Mosquito Shield to get your best pricing. Mention Pony Up or on the Pony Express to get your mosquitoes taken care of with them. It was a wild night in Durham. It was a great like atmosphere, weird game, especially with all of SMU's turnovers. But all that matters is SMU 7-1. They've got to circle the wagons, play a lot cleaner offensively, but defense, keep doing your thing for SMU to get by Pitt. The Mustangs are favored, 6.5 points to open in that one. They'll have a huge huge test on their hands, but they'll be in the friendly confines of Ford Stadium Saturday night. So we'll catch you then. We've got a ton of game preview content coming up on the Pony Express podcast. Subscribe to onthePonyExpress.com. We'll catch you next time on the On the Pony Express podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to onthePonyExpress.com for more coverage.